objective was to assess the impact and also identify and evaluate some of the management practices as agroclimatic or agro-adaptation measures which can be adopted. This study was done in Northeast, 3 locations, Konkan, Royat and Ubon Rajasthani. We know about Northeast that there's a uneven distribution of rainfall, and also the rice yield is much lower than the country average, low fertility. So major varieties which are grown in on Northeast, most of you know better than me in this case, there are 2 main varieties, RD6 and KDML 105. These are the common varieties which are grown there, and the rice yield is about 2 to 2.5 tons per hectare. The research methodology is a research done at AIT, as I said, that we use a research methodology shown here. We use the future scenarios of 3 decades, 2029, 50-59 and 80-89, what is going to happen. We have used some global circulation model and downscale them to see what are the future climate is going to be, and then we used a software in order to estimate what is the rice yield under future climatic conditions. So we simulated the climate first and tried to see that our climate simulated by the regional climate model is reasonable to be used. Results are shown here. Then future weather scenarios, we used IPCC scenario A2, which is most severe scenario in terms of future climate, with countries are going for their economic development independently, more independently. Then we see that carbon dioxide concentrations are going to go up based on this scenario. The temperatures are also going to go up by 2 to 3 to 4 degrees, which are also shown here in terms of maximum and minimum temperatures. Future rainfall, it shows that the future rainfall in 2029 is going to increase. Again, there will be increase in 50 to 59, but we expect the rainfall is going to reduce in 80 to 89, decade of 80 to 89. So the model was calibrated, which is a standard practice, and then results are shown in terms of grain yield, quite satisfactory results, number of seeds per square meter, and harvest index and anthesis day. So these results show that this model is reflective of real situation. Then we also did more experiments to make sure that these results are acceptable. So we had no fertilizer situation with fertilizer at certain rate at different locations and different crop varieties. Our calibration or comparison shows reasonable results of about 5% difference. So we accepted those results for the calibration purpose during 1980 to 89. Then this is the table which I want to emphasize on, that in future the yield is going to reduce from 2.7 tons per hectare to 2.4 tons, then it will go further down to 2.2 and then further down to 1.8. Although number of panicles you see here is increasing. Number of panicles is 33, went down to 31, 27, but then increase of 36, but grain production is reducing. So the effect of future climate on rice yield at different locations in terms of, you see here RD6 and KDML5 at different location of Rohit and Konkan and Ubon Rastani. Everywhere we see the reduction of about 20 to 25% in the future. So we try to also simulate the effect of carbon dioxide and the temperature. So as temperature goes up, increases, the reduction in the yield is observed, whereas if carbon dioxide increases, we have increase in, so there is a compromise between these two to compensate on. We analyzed many adaptation measures, especially the simple ones like changing the sowing date or planting date, changing the rate of nitrogen application or the fertilizer application, using different types of new varieties, the hybrid varieties which are coming out. And you see here the results are shown for KDML and RD6 at Rohit. We see here that we expect by changing the planting date by plus 30 days and minus 30 days. So this is the way we can try to compensate the loss in the yield by changing the sowing date. Similar to this, we have also looked into different nitrogen rates, application time of the fertilizer, and then the different new hybrid varieties which are coming out. The summary is that rice yield will decline under future climatic conditions, and we expect more fluctuations in the production going to come. There is a possibility to mitigate this impact by changing the sowing date, and there is also possibility to go for more hybrid varieties which are temperature resistant and have high yield potential. So there is a prospect. At the same time, we should be ready what is going to happen. This came out in terms of a publication, scientific publications. If some of you are interested, you can have a look at it. Let me go to the next case study, biofuel production and its impact on water resources. This was done in a very small watershed. So our idea is to find out water footprints and see what is the impact on the water balances and also water quality. So this study was done in a very small watershed of about 200 square kilometers in Rayong province, and the land, the whole process is here. I would not go into detail, but the idea was to estimate the water footprints which of the crops, and then of biofuel, and then the biofuel energy. So this is the way we have done it. These are the definition of water footprints, which I would skip in the benefit of time. This is a process of developing this water balance model. Again, some of you hydrologists would be knowing it very well. We try to develop several land use scenarios and then evaluate the impact on the water balance and water quality. Before we go there, you know that the policy of the government of Thailand is to increase the biodiesel and bioethanol by expanding the oil palm by 1 million hectare in next year, in fact, by 2012. The baseline land use makes the majority is under rubber, and then forest, then orchard. So we developed several scenarios. In fact, 15 different scenarios were developed that we change the orchard to oil palm, rubber to oil palm, orchard and rubber to oil palm. There are a lot of combinations were done in order to understand the impact. Similarly, the cassava expansion and the sugarcane expansion. Would like to say that the cassava is found to be more effective in terms of water use. So we have 3 water footprints here, the blue, the green, the blue and the gray. And this is minimum for cassava. Now government is going in a big way for oil palm, which is requiring the highest, which will have impact on the watershed of the water. These are some of the results of effect on water balance. This SR is surface runoff, base flow and total yield and the evapotranspiration for oil palm and cassava. I would not go in detail again because of the time. So what is more important is the water use per gigajoule of bioenergy, which is 108 for 108, 183 and 143. Now more important aspect is the impact on the water quality. The nitrogen or nitrate in terms of nitrate in terms of is loss is going to increase in all cases, and we expect almost increase of 165% of phosphorus in the surface water bodies. So the impact on water quality and the environment as a whole is more important in case of when it comes to production of biofuel crops. We would need more irrigation. Again, 90% of the land use change would increase blue water, which is irrigation in fact, by more than 20 times. So the increase would be drastic in terms of irrigation if these crops are irrigated in order to increase the yield. Similarly, grey water is going to increase. Now, in the summary, the forest conversion will affect the water balance only. So we should not go for converting forest to these biofuel crops. The bioethanol will affect the water balance. Biodiesel production will affect both the water quality because of increased nitrogen phosphorus loading to the surface water. So in summary, the land use management plans we would like to come up with, which we have not reached to this during this research, is trying to come up with a threshold level of different kinds of crops within the basin, biofuel crops and the food crops, in order to maintain the ecology of the system. Final reflections, I will take few more minutes. 3 dimensions of food security: energy, water and food. We must achieve by understanding how these are linked, what are the impact of one to another. That's very, very important. We need to come up with some strategies which are looking into these dimensions of nexus. Now, if we consider only one, then the problem is going to spill over to the other. And it's a very complex, and we would reach to what we call the problem of the spiral of problems or insecurity if we are addressing one only without looking into other 2 aspects. The relationship will become impossible. We must act now in terms of how do we go about bringing this together. Coordination, the development of policies, the market, the investment conditions, water and energy must be taken together, which is not done in many countries at this stage. So capacity development is very important. This is one of the part of this presentation, that how do we really educate people that they understand energy, water and food nexus, and can we develop a comprehensive understanding at different levels: local level, community level, the regional level and international levels. I would suggest that the government should take assessment of the sustainability as a whole, water, energy, and food sustainability as an issue to be taken up. We must emphasize